There are no two ways about it other than to say that BYU as an institution is in quite a pickle when it comes to Jake Retzlaff.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone and a 13-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident BYU expert and insider right here on this daily podcast focused on all things BYU. And as always, thank you to all of you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about the situation that BYU finds itself in when it comes to dealing with the Jake Retzlaff situation, because quite literally, it doesn't feel like they have any way to appease anybody when it comes to him. Then we'll talk about BYU football and their early season kickoffs that were announced yesterday, and the Vampire Cougs moniker lives on. Then we'll finish up today's show with our weekly mailbag from the Locked On Cougars Insider Group and talk about what you want to talk about in that mailbag segment. All right, let's dive right in on today's show. Right at the outset of this conversation, I have been inundated all week long with question after question after question involving the Jake Retzlaff situation. I feel like at some point it'll die down and we can move on to other topics on this podcast, but it remains a red hot topic of discussion. And I've gotten DMs, emails, straight up questions via text. It's been nonstop. And the biggest one I feel like I wanted to address today is something that I, along with others in the media, have talked about, essentially BYU being in a, quote, no-win situation, unquote. The reason why that has come about and why I believe it is 100% true in this circumstance is because, quite literally, BYU has no easy way to move forward with the Jake Retzlaff situation without alienating, angering, or causing uproar from some faction somewhere. And I hope that makes sense. Let me explain just a couple of the circumstances they find themselves in. First thing, let's say BYU, and I've discussed this earlier on this week on the podcast when I talked about, okay, if BYU were to do an internal investigation, and they have not obviously gone through that yet because it's only been 10 days removed from this lawsuit being filed. If they do their due diligence, they do an internal investigation, and they determine from their vantage point that Jake Retzlaff is in the clear, he's exonerated, and they feel like they have no reason to take any action against him, and they're going to put him on the field and let him play this fall. If they do that, there is going to be uproar from some in the media. There'll be uproar when BYU goes on the road to various road venues, whether it's their first road game of the season is at East Carolina, their first Big 12 road game is at Colorado. Wherever they go on the road, there are going to be people out there who are going to have signs. They're going to chant derogatory things. And let's acknowledge that BYU as a football program is not wholly unfamiliar with derogatory chants being directed at them. We have heard the queen mother of all dirty words, as our good friend Ralphie from the Christmas Story uses it, to directed it at BYU as a football program. We've heard it from Oregon. We've heard it from USC. We've heard it from Wyoming. We've heard it from seemingly every fan base out there and there's been apology after apology for it. But that's to the program as a whole. This situation, if Jake Retzlaff is on the road as BYU's QB1, the derogatory chants are going to be directed at an individual and none bigger than QB1, the BMOC, a big man on campus for BYU, speaking of Jake Retzlaff. That is the flips. That's one side of this conversation. The flip side of it is, let's say that Jake Retzlaff is sanctioned by BYU, whether that's due to honor code, they said the lawsuits just got too much heat on it, they're going to sit him, whatever the circumstances, they don't play him this year. And let's say that trial takes place, the civil lawsuit, and we've had legal experts like Greg Skordas, who works for KSL News Radio, a sister company, a sister station, I should say, of mine in my day job at the KSL Sports Zone. And he said that the earliest he believes that this would go to trial, speaking of that civil lawsuit, is mid to late 2026. So essentially a year plus from now. And that's the early timeline. Let's say that it finally goes to trial and Jake Retzlaff in that lawsuit or that trial is exonerated. Well, he could turn around and file a suit against BYU for lost payments on NIL. He could challenge for lost playing time. There are a litany of different things that he could file suit on if he were exonerated on that side of it. There is no good way for Brigham Young University, in my mind, to move forward with this and not have some faction of somebody's fan base, whether that's BYU's or elsewhere, have issue with the way that they go about this. There's also Title IX implications here. And Dean asked this in Locked On Cougars Insider Group. I can answer this right now, Dean. He said, can you explain what Title IX's involvement in this? Well, here's the thing. Title IX, when it comes to allegations of sexual assault, any public institution of higher learning, which BYU is, that accepts federal funding has Title IX oversight as part of it, that they will do their own investigation. BYU also has its honor code that will do its own investigation. There are so many layers, and I've used that term a lot with this situation, that it is a complicated web of just, there are so many overlapping things here that it doesn't feel like anybody involved. And I'm talking from the university level. Speaking of Shane Reese as the university president, also Keith Vorking, the advancement vice president who oversees BYU athletics. Brian Santiago is the athletic director. Kalani Satake is the head coach. On down to Jake Retzlaff himself, his teammates. The alleged victim, who obviously you think of in this circumstance as well, and hope that all is as well as it can be for all parties involved. But there really is, in my mind, it's a no-win situation, because Title IX will involve federal oversight. You have a civil lawsuit that obviously is pending, and there will be a discovery that happens with that. There will be a convening of a jury at some point. And you, like I said, if BYU feels like that he's completely exonerated on the inside and decide to play him, they're facing backlash whenever they go on the road, and they're going to have to police that themselves and maybe talk to these various universities ahead of time and say, hey, we need you to get your fan base in line and understand that we've cleared Jake. And you may have the opposing universities try and police themselves, but you can't police every fan every second of every game, it feels like, can you? Suffice it to say, as I kind of try to sum all this up, is that BYU, they are in quite a pickle. They're in quite a conundrum here as they try and navigate the Jake Retzlaff thing. I can also say this about BYU. They will act with integrity. They will determine what they believe to be their best course of action, and they will follow it, and they will have conviction about it. And whatever side that you fall on with all this, there are going to be detractors on the other side who are going to have their voice. They're going to be shouting as well. And it is no win for anybody. It's a complicated, ugly situation that has no positive outcomes, I guess, overall. There's no winners in any of this. And that is the unfortunate side of it. And like I said, I'm quite frankly getting tired of having to talk about it, but it remains like a red hot topic, because the feedback I get is about Jake, and the questions I continue to get, I'm inundated with them. It makes up about 50% of the inquiries I get on a daily basis right now. It is incredible, the nature of this story, but it also involves QB1 and Provo. I've said on this podcast before, there may not be a more popular person in the entire city of Provo, if not Utah County, than BYU's starting quarterback. And I know that AJ DeBonsa's on campus, and he's the top-rated recruit but history suggests that BYU starting quarterback, they get absolute just star power when it comes to their outsized influence. And it's a crazy world. And when there are salacious details like there have been about this Jake Retzlaff situation, it only heightens everything around it. And once again, I don't feel like anybody is coming out of this with good feelings or having a positive outcome for all parties. There's just zero possibility for that, it feels like, in my mind. All right, we're going to move on now. We're going to talk about BYU football a little bit more, but get ready for some late nights, everybody. BYU, the Vampire Cougs, they are here to stay, it appears, because BYU is going to be playing late nights at LaVell Edwards Stadium for the foreseeable future, and we'll discuss it next, right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are rolling on, and there's obviously every night it feels like a highlight-worthy performance, a major momentum shift, or just downright can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout play, there's never been a better time to get in on the action and do it With our friends at FanDuel, they make it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live during the action with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big with FanDuel. The best part is which players are showing up in the biggest moments and how could tracking their trends help you build your next bet. Could you combine those live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds? And could you put together a same-game parlay that could have an extra big payout for you guys? And how could a $200 bonus in bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? I think it would absolutely add to your enjoyment. So if you're new to FanDuel, now is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets just like that. That's as simple as it gets, my friends. So make every moment more and do it with our friends over at FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope you all are doing fantastic out there, wherever you might be. Now, we are running up here on the end of May, and the month of June is our, quote, off season as Locked On podcast hosts on the college side of things. So essentially over the next month and change, leading up essentially to Big 12 Media Days, and it's early July, but the next month and change is our off season. We are only required during that period to do 3 shows a week. I will say this, it is my full intention to go through the month of June and do 5 shows a week. But if I feel like that we're running low on material and I'm not feeling like I have enough to not make you guys want to gouge your eyes out or put forks in your ears because of what I'm bloviating on about, I may skip a day or here or there. Just understand that it's kind of a heads up over the next month. But once again, it is my full intention, so long as I've got material sufficient for it. And so far, the offseason is delivered in spades. As sad it is, the Jake Retzlaff situation, it's fed this podcast headline after headline. It feels like for a week and a half now. So we'll do our best to keep you updated on Cougars every single day. But understand that there's a day here or there that we're not there with an updated podcast. Understand that sometimes you just got to take a day. All right, let's talk BYU football, though. The Vampire Cougs moniker has been out there for quite some time. It goes back to BYU in their independent era when it seemed like every home game for a long stretch there was played late night, whether it was 8, 8:15, 8:30 p.m. BYU was playing under the lights at LaVell Edwards Stadium. Well, it appears as members of the Big 12 going into year 3, that is going to continue to be the case if the early indications are to be believed. Now, if you didn't see it yesterday, BYU had 4 of their games have kickoff and TV designations announced. Those games are the season opener against Portland State, the second game of the season the following week against Stanford, their first Big 12 road game at Colorado, and then their Friday night game the week of General Conference for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on October 3rd against West Virginia. Those were the games that are announced for BYU. And 3 of the 4 are kicking off at 8:15 or 8:30 p.m., and all 3 of them are on ESPN. Those are Stanford, Colorado, and West Virginia. The only game that is got an earlier kickoff, and it is still an evening kickoff, is the game 92 days away from today, because we are just 92 days away from kickoff against Portland State. That'll be a 6 p.m. kickoff, and it'll be streaming exclusively on ESPN+. Get ready for late nights at the Ed, as my good friend Patrick Kinahan likes to call it. LaVell Edwards Stadium is an incredible bastion for BYU in terms of a home field advantage, and especially those late night contests. Gregor Bell pointed it out on social media yesterday that BYU's got an incredibly gaudy record when it comes to playing late night games. I'm pulling it up right now. I closed out of it on accident, and I'm getting get it pulled back up here. But yeah, 28-4 in their last 32 night games, including a 15-3 mark in night games at LES, speaking of LaVell Edwards Stadium. BYU is nigh to impossible to beat under the lights at LES in Provo, Utah. And it's something I feel like, just based on what we're seeing, it's going to be a part of life for BYU as a member of the Big 12. ESPN had a exclusive rights deal with BYU when they were an independent football program, and realized that BYU delivered eyeballs and TV numbers whenever you put them on TV. 10 a.m., 1:30, 5 o'clock, 9 p.m. It didn't matter when ESPN put BYU on TV. Cougar fans showed up in droves, whether it was in person or tuned in and watched. And that's what I believe that the Big 12 has realized in BYU's relative infancy as members of this conference, is that BYU delivers TV numbers, and particularly at home, that late night window has become pretty lucrative for these media rights deals when it comes to ESPN and Fox. And BYU appears to be one of those darlings that is going to, more often than not, apparently, play late night football games. Is it ideal for fans? No. Is it ideal for media members like myself who may stay up until 3 or 4 a.m. Sunday morning, getting all my post-game duties, postcast for this podcast, everything that I've got to do for my job? Is it ideal? No, it's not. But if BYU keeps winning, so be it. And I think that's the trade-off. Now, there have been some of you out there who have said that you actually like the late night kickoffs because it allows you to go and watch your kids play in whatever sport they're playing during the fall. You can get some of your honey-do list, maybe have dinner with your family, and then cruise on down to LaVell Edwards Stadium or tune in and watch the Cougars late night, and then you're off and rolling doing the rest of what you got to do. That it works out in that circumstance in some ways. I also think those of you out on the East Coast, my good friends Tyler Berg and I think Dirk out there, you guys are in the Eastern time zone. If it's an 8:15 kickoff in Provo, guess what it's for you guys? It's 10:15. And guess what? They're body clock games. I mentioned West Virginia. They're coming to BYU on a Friday night, October 3rd. And that body clock game, it's an 8:30 kickoff on ESPN. That's 10:30 on the body clocks of the West Virginia Mountaineers. Is anybody feeling bad for them? I'm not, because they signed up for this to play in a conference that literally stretches coast to coast. And BYU also has had issues when they go to the East Coast and playing at 10 a.m. on their body clocks. There's no perfect solution for this. Let's be very blunt. But I also can appreciate the fact that BYU is a proven entity when it comes to drawing eyeballs, TV numbers, and generating money for media rights partners. That's a good thing. The only crappy part is, yet again, it's late night. Those games kick off at 8:15 and they finish up right about midnight. And if you live anywhere outside of the direct vicinity of Provo, you're driving 20, 30, 40 minute, 2 hours. I know some people come from Idaho. That's what, 3.5 hour drive at minimum. Cougar fans, I got to give you mad props. You guys show up in droves no matter when BYU plays, where they play, and it's awesome. Would it be ideal if BYU could have some more games that are like a 6 o'clock or a 5 o'clock kickoff every so often? Sure. And that'd be in terms of home games in Provo. But it appears that BYU's lot in life is to play late night football. And if the record continues to hold, where they're, as Greg says, 28-4 in their last 32 night games, and then they're 15-3 at home in those set in the same set, that's awesome. That means BYU's winning a lot, and they have a distinct home field advantage. David Almadova and his staff at BYU have done an incredible job with the in-game entertainment portion. They make it so those TV timeouts that seem to drag on forever, especially when it's 11:30 at night, they still entertain you, whether it's the fourth quarter break right between the third and fourth quarter with the turbulence thing. They have the fire knife dancers out there. They got Cosmo doing incredible stunt or feats after feat. The nice part is BYU makes it an event worth attending because there's the game within the game. That is the entertainment portion when it comes to the media timeouts. And it also doesn't hurt when you have a winning football program. That's the other thing that BYU's got to weigh here is they got to win. If you don't win, people aren't as inclined to watch it because, simply put, fans, it's short for fanatic. You want to watch your team win. I can wholeheartedly tell you that podcast numbers, when BYU wins, hey, life's good. When they lose, ooh, it's going to take a hit. But that's from my perspective. And I don't think I'm saying anything out of line there because, simply put, it's how fans, how you respond to things. You want your team to win. And BYU is pretty darn good late night in terms of that. And I think ESPN likes the fact that BYU delivers TV numbers in that late window, that fourth window of the 4 windows they talk about when it comes to college football in this day and age. So it appears, yeah, BYU, if you're going to be playing it in Provo, get ready for late night football under the lights at LaVell Edwards Stadium. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about what you want to talk about. Obviously, we throw it out to our Locked On Cougars Insider Group members every single week. Fill up that mailbag, and we address as many of the questions as we have in the time remaining on our Friday editions of the podcast. And we will get to that next as we roll on right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Post District. Now, if you want to move to an incredible new community in the Salt Lake area, our friends at Post District have got it for you guys. And the best part is about Post District is they want you guys to have the best experience possible. They have 4 new apartment buildings: the Register, Post House North, Post House South, and 801 Flats. Each residence offers its own unique take on luxury urban living with features involving waterfall kitchen islands, floor-to-ceiling windows, vaulted ceilings, spacious patios, and even walk-in closets. And the best part is you have premium amenities in the communities themselves, including the city's largest residential gym, a year-round pool, golf simulator, a massive TV wall for sports watching parties, and more, all anchored and a one-of-a-kind community. Step outside and find yourself immersed in Sally's hottest dining and nightlife scene with award-winning spots like Urban Hill, Mencho Ramen, which just barely opened, by the way, Level Crossing, and Sunday's Best just steps away. And whether you're looking for a studio, a 1, 2, or 3-bedroom apartment, or even a penthouse, find your perfect home today. Visit liveatpost.com or call them at 801-590-6247. That's 801-590-6247. And mention Locked On Cougar sent you for an exclusive incentives. Once again, get started today at liveatpost.com or call them at 801-590-6247. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, what are you waiting for? Sign up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Get the inside scoop on all things BYU from yours truly. The best part is you get a 14-day free trial to see if it's the right option for you guys, and it's just $5 a month to be part of the Insiders Group, and it allows you, as we're about to get into, to ask questions of myself in our weekly mailbag. All right, Reagan gets the first question today because he was the first person to submit a question when we threw it out there. He says, we know that the basketball program is going to be really good, but are they loading up their schedule with too many tough games in the non-conference, or is this a strategy that may not get them a high seed in the tournament, but prepare them to go deep in the big dance? I think that they are flirting, obviously, with having a very, very stout, maybe an overly stout non-conference slate. I agree with you on Reagan, but I think Kevin Young's whole intention is having a battle-hardened and battle-tested team well before BYU gets into Big 12 play, and obviously, more importantly, when we get into March Madness. Yes, they're going to absorb some losses. Playing the likes of UConn, Villanova, on down the list. They announced just the games that they're going to be playing in the non-conference. They're going to get their butts handed to them from time to time. It's just simple fact of life, but those are quality losses. And I know it sounds like a really oxymoronic thing to say, but that's exactly what it is. Quality losses matter when it comes to the selection committee. BYU's strength of schedule last year was like 340 something out of 360 some odd teams. That's not good enough. If you want to be a 1 or a 2 seed, you got to have a strength of schedule that's in the double digits. We're talking 1 to 100, somewhere in there. And the schedule, with the way it's shaping up for BYU right now, very well is going to be inside of that range and could benefit them, even if they absorb some losses early, because they will get better from that quicker than they did last year when they got off to a slow start in Big 12 play and had to make it up on the back end. So hopefully they can kind of navigate both sides of that, if that makes sense. Kent, how much do you think AJ DeBonsa helps recruiting not only in basketball, but football and beyond? I can tell you this much, Kent. It has changed and opened doors for BYU. When you have the top prospect in the entire recruiting pool for college basketball, say he's going to Brigham Young University on national television on First Take with Stephen A. Smith, there are people who are going to say, what does he know that I don't know, and why am I not looking at BYU? And that happens for football. That happens for basketball, but it's also opened the doors for the football program. People know who AJ DeBonsa is, and the fact that he picked BYU and has been so outspoken about what he likes about being in Provo, what he believes it'll do for him. It's opening doors for BYU in recruiting that may otherwise have been locked forever to BYU. It's opening those doors. So it's interesting to see how BYU is going to handle it, if they can capitalize on it, but it absolutely has opened doors for BYU, and it's one of those fun things to kind of track and see how they're doing on this. All right, other questions here. Tate, would you rather go 1-11 and beat Utah, or go 11-1 and lose to Utah? He says, personally, I prefer to beat Utah and lose every other game. Tate, I'm going to disagree with you. I'd rather go 11-1. You go 1-11, and I guess, yeah, beating Utah, that stands for itself, but 1-11 be one of the worst seasons in program history, and I'm not here for it. I'll absorb a loss to Utah and have 11 other wins. I'll just say that. And that maybe make me the enemy of some of you, but I'd rather have 11 wins versus just one. All right, other questions here. With the mix of veteran and young players in BYU sports for football and basketball, do you feel that one will benefit more than the other? That comes from Ryan. That's a good question here for Ryan. When it comes to the Jake Retzlaff situation, if they do not have Jake, the veteran players around, whether it's McKay Hillstead or Trayson Bourget or a Bear Bachmeyer, the starting quarterback, having veteran players around them is critical, and I think would have a major benefit for BYU football. But if Jake is available, it goes to probably BYU basketball. We know that AJ DeBonsa is a seminal talent. He is one of one in many respects, and he's probably going to be the number one pick in the NBA draft next year. He needs veteran guys around him. That's what Kevin Young has done. He's got Richie Saunders back. He's got guys like Robert Wright III have come in, Keba Keita around him. Kennard Davis Jr. officially signed yesterday. You got Nate Pickens. You've got Tyler Muris. They have brought in so many veteran players who have got a lot of experience in college basketball to surround probably the focal point of that team, speaking of AJ DeBonsa, that will help him navigate some of those inevitable things that happen for a first-time college basketball player and help him get through it. So I really do like the way they've gone about building that roster. Let's see here. Good question here from Royal Cougars. It says this, your first text after the news broke about the lawsuit came in response for Jake Retzlaff to the story and the many questions at Salt Lake Tribune about the story. You confirmed the lawsuit was real and that KSL Sports had obtained a copy. Did you learn anything from personally reading it that stood out to you compared to all the news articles? At this point, everything's out there. There's nothing else in the report, the lawsuit that I could pass along to you right now that is going to be like revolutionary, because it's all been reported on. And yes, they've quibbled with it. There have been contradictory statements from Provo police with regards to them corroborating or not corroborating their initial reports, and if they could have actionable intel to move on with. That's the interesting part about this, is everything's out there. It's been so heavily reported on that you can piece every little bit of it together. I actually think some of the networks, if not the news publications, have actually printed the full lawsuit. If you want to go find it, you can go read word for word. And the other thing is you can request it. FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, you as a lay citizen, that's a public record. You can get that. You can get your paws on it if you want to do that. That's the thing about it. So it's kind of crazy how it all goes down, but that it's public record at this point. Anybody can get that. Let's see other questions coming in here. Man, we got some good ones. You guys delivered this week. I appreciate all this. Guy, Jake, can you tell us some of the players that Kevin Young and coaches are looking at for next year in basketball? Guy, suffice it to say, it's like everybody. I know that's a cop-out answer, but the deal is BYU's chasing anybody and everybody they think is a top-tier prospect. That includes some local guys. Dean Ruckert from Timpview High School, who's a bona fide 4-star prospect. Anthony Falesi down at Utah Prep Academy, who is playing prep basketball in Utah. He's from Utah. He plays for Utah Prep Academy and played with AJ DeBonsa. They're two local guys that BYU's chasing, but they're chasing 4- and 5-star talents all over the country, and they're also scouring the globe. BYU's recruiting reach in basketball literally reaches worldwide, and they will find the best and brightest they believe can help Kevin Young and company continue their winning ways. And obviously, if what Kevin Young hopes to do this year with this roster delivers, even more doors in terms of 4- and 5-star athletes are going to be like, hey, BYU, I'm interested. That's the interesting part about this. We'll see what happens on all that. All right. I think that's all of the let's see. Geez. Oh, one other one here. Joseph Grant, real quick. Good to see BYU not kick Jake to the curb right now, but honestly, it's a little concerning to me because, in my opinion, this is BYU's best chance to win the Big 12, and that was the expectation coming into the year. Not having a firm starter at quarterback or a, quote, QB by committee, unquote, approach is pretty concerning. Next season is an 8-5 type of season to me with how much turnover is incoming. An 8-5 or 9-4 year this year would be very disappointing as a fan. I can understand that sentiment, Joseph, because, yeah, I've said it. I think that Jake is worth 1-2 wins at least, and that could take you from, 10-2, 11-1 to, 8-4, 9-3. That would be tough to swallow. I get that's a tough pill to swallow as a fan, considering the hype this team had. We'll see how it all shakes out, but there's no real good answer on any of this, it feels like. All right, now for a couple off the rails questions here. John, I don't know if you saw this or not, but College Football 26 from EAA Sports will allow cross-platform dynasty mode. Just throwing that out, LOL. I did see that, John. We may have to actually build a Locked On Cougars dynasty group. Now, my college football playing habits have been significantly curbed. The nice part is have kids that are interested in that game. My son, he loves College Football 25, and that gives me the convenient excuse of I'm spending quality time with my son when my wife gets mad at me for playing video games. I don't mean to laugh about it, but it's kind of how it goes. So, yeah, we have to look at that. Other questions here. Who do you have winning the Stanley Cup? Okay, we got Edmonton versus Florida. Now, it's the rematch of last year. Florida won it last year, but Edmonton this year has the home ice advantage. I'm rooting for the Oilers. I really like Connor McDavid. He is an incredible, incredible player. Leon Draisaitl is a ton of fun as well. And Edmonton was kind of an afterthought for a lot of people coming into the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they've just kind of steamrolled everybody since turning it on. I'm rooting for the Edmonton Oilers. I got them winning it, probably 6 games. It may go to 7 like they did last year, but we'll see what happens. And then let's see. Oh, final question here. Okay, this is a good one. This comes from Nate. Jake, you're a church-going guy, as I understand it. Are you a suit guy or do you eschew suits? Okay. All right. So I, for most of my life, have avoided wearing a suit at all costs, whether it's in my daily life, at church, etc. Suits are wholly uncomfortable. I run really hot. I sweat very easily. You guys probably see my forehead glisten on this podcast alone. I sweat very easily. And wearing a suit, it doesn't work for me in many respects. But I got to give a shout out to a friend of the podcast who's not a sponsor, could be a sponsor if they want to. It's our friends at Odeon. They hooked me up with a suit last year, and that suit is the first suit I can say, and I'm including a suit I took on my mission that I wore maybe 5 times in Taiwan, other suits that I've worn over the years for my wedding, etc. The suit I have currently from Odeon Menswear is the best suit, bar none, that I have ever owned, and is by far the most comfortable suit I have ever owned. My wife has for years been like, why don't you wear suits to church? You look so good in a suit. I'm like, nope, too hot, uncomfortable, not for me. I will wear my shirt and tie and call it a day. I will say, Odeon took care of that problem, and I am more apt to wear a suit than I ever have at any point in my life. And like I said, for years, you could have given me a suit when I was 19 going on my mission, give me a suit when I was 12. It didn't matter. I wasn't going to wear it. Just not for me. But hey, Odeon may have changed my mind on that a little bit. I'm not saying I'm wearing it every week because I still like to just wear a shirt and tie more often than not. But if I got to wear a suit, my guys at Odeon, they changed my mindset on this a little bit. And like I said, not a sponsor, just a good friend of the podcast, helped me out last year in a pinch. And I have really enjoyed their product. So if you are looking for a good suit, go check out our friends at Odeon and talk to the guys over there and tell them that Locked On Cougar sent you when you stop by. All right. Enough advertising for non-advertisers, nonetheless. As always, thanks for all your guys' support. It really does mean the world to me that you guys enjoy the podcast as much as you guys do. And truthfully, I couldn't do it without you guys. So please continue to subscribe, rate, review, share it with your family and friends. Let them know that this is daily podcast covering all things BYU, and it's available on demand wherever you get your podcasts and also available on YouTube. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And thank you to all of you who are everydayers right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.